to episode 24 of Coach's Corner. Today, we're going to do something a little bit different.
Yeah.
We're not going to be like talking about numbers and facts and figures. We're going to be talking more about how to make health and weight loss and fitness your own. And I think just giving better perspective on having a growth mindset so that you can be consistent, because sometimes when we're fixed in our thinking of like it has to be one way or the other, we tend to quit, or we get discouraged, or we compare ourselves. And so today we're going to be a little different, just more of a conversation on some anecdotes that I feel like might be helpful for you. But I'm Justin Scollard.
And I'm Ethan Wolf.
And man, 24 already.
It's crazy.
That's amazing. I love it.
Almost a quarter of 100 here.
We're almost a quarter of 100. That's pretty solid. So, all right. So, Ethan.
Yes.
When it comes to your own health journey, what are some things that you have just realized that you just can't keep up with, even though maybe at one point they were a big staple in your life and a big part of your, your fitness, but then, as you get older, we all realize that we have to decide how we're going to allocate our time. And I think that with fitness, it just comes to like, okay, we can't do everything. So like, what can we do in order to like get us as close as possible to our idea of health for ourselves?
Oh, that's a good question. Let's see. I think I used to be much bigger into supplementation and adaptogens and mushrooms and wild herbs. And I do think that they can really help and really be beneficial, but it can be a lot to juggle and keep up with and keep buying, and just, the list grows on and on. It's easy to get to like taking like 30, 40 capsules in the morning.
Oh yeah, because it's like they all make so much sense.
And they do.
You're like, I should incorporate this. I should incorporate this. And then like you said, next thing you know, you got a whole medicine cabinet.
Yeah, and so I think that's something I've let go of a little bit on the journey, just because it's a lot.
I remember like back in like the Continuum days, like when we were like 25, and it was like that book Healing with Whole Foods.
Mm-hmm.
And it was like I wasn't as concerned with like the science around everything. It was just kind of more like influenced by people around me, including you, not in a bad way, but just like, oh, okay, I should do this now. And I remember like at one point my nutrition protocol was just absurd.
Yeah.
I mean, I was like juicing, which is a nightmare if you've ever juiced. It's like you got all this pulp everywhere, and you got to clean it out every time. It's just like
a time commitment.
Yeah, all to get like this much juice of like your beets and your carrots, and you like drink it, but it took 45 minutes to make the damn glug up. But I remember like just going down that, I think, to what you're trying to get at here, and like all the different supplements and all the different things, you just kind of get to the point where it's like, okay, you know what? Like, I'm sure they all have an amazing effect on your body, but like, what are the 20% of things that I can do that are going to get me 80% of the results that I'm after?
The return, yeah.
And I think that's sort of the theme of today, right?
I think so, yeah. And just, quality of life for individuals, I think, will vary in terms of just an effort to reward ratio. I think is kind of how I see it.
Definitely.
And most things that are good in life don't come without some type of hard work. And so I think complacency, or not doing anything in the guise of it being easy and therefore making life easier, isn't the answer. But that, I think, sometimes, it's not that less is more, but that some minimal effective doses of things or some commitment to a couple of things might mean that your quality of life is improved from what you're pursuing, and that's good for you and you're happy.
Totally.
And you're taking care of yourself in some component, but you're letting go of some of the staunch protocols or just some of the things that you might know you should do that might mean that much more improvement in XYZ, but that maybe you just don't have room for it. Maybe your time is already so strapped. Maybe it's just so unappealing to you that to integrate that would just make the quality of your life go down a little bit, make you a little less happy, versus just like, okay, what are the things I can commit to, and what are the things that are going to have a positive benefit on my health and lifestyle as a whole, and these are good enough that I can stick to them and then actually get the rewards.
It's such an important takeaway because I feel like people have this idea that if they like work, like fitness means eating food you don't like, it means exercising in a way that's going to make you feel terrible, it means getting up at 5 o'clock, it means doing all these things that are like so much sacrifice,
yes,
that it prevents people from starting, when the reality is the exact opposite is true, because it's the difference between like having a growth mindset and having a fixed mindset.
Yeah.
And when you have more of a growth mindset, it's more of like, okay, well, fitness is not a binary, it's a continuum. And so it's not a good or bad, should I, shouldn't I, but how much.
Right.
And I think a good way to look at this is like, everyone's heard of, we got to walk 10,000 steps a day. Everyone's heard to track your macros. Everyone's heard you got to have like, 10 to 20 sets per muscle group per week.
Right, 3 times
and there's
a week
all
or
these
more
like
resistance
hard
training.
Yeah, there's all these like hard rules that I feel like people like they take as the end all be all, and then they just go, well, I can't do that. I work 12-hour shifts, or I have kids. I just can't go and do all these things, and so then they don't do it. But the reality is that it's not a binary. It's not if you don't do that, you might as well not even do it. It's well, then what can I do? And I think when you can just shift your mind into that creative sort of exploratory mindset of, okay, well, what's the spirit of this? The spirit of it is to get outside and walk, and maybe there's like a health benefit that happens when we cross this 10,000 step, but that doesn't mean that 5,000 steps is worthless.
Right, that there's no benefit.
Right, maybe an hour of weights 3 times a week, there's like some real quantifiable benefit to that. But that doesn't mean like a 20-minute at-home resistance band or light dumbbell workout, it means nothing.
Right, or even just once a week in the gym.
Yeah.
It's a full session. I mean,
right.
It still stacks if you keep doing it.
Yeah,
and
totally.
There's still benefit to it. And it's it's like even like with food. Like if you're drinking soda, like diet soda might be a better choice. Maybe a flavored sparkling water would be a good choice. Maybe just drinking water would be a better choice. But there is like a spectrum there that it doesn't have to be like, oh, I drink energy drinks and soda all day, but now I just can only drink water and that's the only liquid I'll consume. It's like there are different steps that you can take, and I think any moving of the needle in what would be determined the better direction is going to have an impact if you keep up with it.
Totally. I mean, I cannot tell you how many times I get on calls with people and they're just like, it's called the when-then fallacy. Have you heard of the when-then fallacy?
Yes. Yeah.
So when I have more time,
yes,
then I'll
when my kids graduate,
get healthy. Yeah, when I have more money, then I'll start investing.
When this project at work is over, then I'll start working out again.
But it's just, Seneca has a quote that says, the one thing all fools have in common is waiting to start. Because it's this idea that for whatever reason, you think that right now is busy, but later is going to be better. What I've observed, and having done this now for fucking almost 20 years, actually, legit 20 years, is that wherever you're at right now, until you're retired, or unless you've like won the lottery and you're just like independently wealthy, you don't have to work, and you don't have any kids. But most people, wherever you are right now,
right,
you're 25, you're 30, you're 35, you're 40, you're 45, you think the future is going to be easier, but this is the easiest it'll ever be for you.
Right here, right now.
This moment right now, as difficult as it is the easiest it's going to be until you're a senior citizen and retired and maybe life's a little bit easier. But you think because you have toddlers right now that it's hard.
Right.
Well, wait until they're 13 and you catch them smoking pot and sneaking out and stealing your car and
right.
All that shit.
Uh-huh.
Right. And so it's just understanding that it wasn't easy for you 5 years ago. It's not easy for you now.
Right.
And it's not going to be easy for you in 5 years from now.
No.
And it's just let's lower the barrier of entry. So what can we do now? Is it a 10-minute, push up and squat workout?
Right.
And it's very easy to be like, what's the point? Well, the point is you started. The point is you got the dopamine firing, you did something.
Absolutely.
You're in momentum now, and that's what matters.
Yep. And also just like that is still going to have metabolic effects. It's still going to, strengthen your tissues and have a positive aspect on your actual physiology too, even if it's something as simple as just 10 minutes of squats and push-ups.
Yep.
If you do that 2 times a week for half a year, you're going to be that much better off for it.
For sure.
If that's all you ever did, you'd be that much better off for it.
For sure.
So it is interesting, and I think the idea is so often overwhelming, especially with like food. I think food is really so entangled in your emotions.
It's culture, it's history,
it's
it's coping mechanisms.
Yeah, exactly. It's emotional.
Yeah.
It's so many things, and it's often the reprieve that people get so much from the hardship of life.
Yep.
Our brain is almost always going to release some positive chemicals for eating something that's tasty. It's just an inevitability. And I think people often lean into that because it's almost like a drug in a way, that it's like there's this guaranteed reward mechanism that is going to happen certain times of the day. People are like, oh, what am I going to eat? People don't necessarily plan. I see it all the time. It's like, and I know I've fallen into it, especially kind of end of COVID. I remember, you get caught in that like Uber Eat loop. And thankfully, I had the finances to do it. I mean, I think it was still foolish, but it's like this game of like, oh, what am I going to eat today?
Oh, and they got you. It's almost like social media for food. It's
yeah,
like you want to go back on and see what your favorite restaurants are up to.
Yeah, it's 100%. You're like, ooh, what am I in the mood for? You're like, ooh, I could do this. I could do that. And even, I just see it in people that even aren't doing Uber Eats. It's kind of like without some type of planning of what you're going to eat. It's this blank slate that can just tantalize the senses. Like, oh, maybe I want some chicken or some salmon, or ooh, tacos sound good. And even if you're cooking it at home, which is totally fine. It's this kind of exciting, thing that has yet to happen in the future that is going to be a rewarding experience.
It's just that reward, and humans just want to reward themselves after something hard. But the problem is that what we interpret as hard is subjective.
Yes.
And so we might just have a tough meeting at work, be like, oh, that's it, I can't take it anymore, I need to order food, I can't make dinner, I'm stressed. But then like your stress threshold just keeps getting lower and lower because you continue to capitulate to that stress, and so now you interpret everything as stress, because really it's not even that you're interpreting as stress, it's just you're using that as an excuse to then justify rewarding yourself.
Yes. And
you just want more and more of the reward and less of the tolerance of stress.
Yeah, less of the tolerance of stress. Yes, exactly.
Yeah, and the thing with like ordering food and takeout is that I think people start to label themselves. They start to identify as who they are. Well, I'm not the kind of guy. I don't cook. I'm not the kind of guy who's going to meal prep.
I hear that all the time. I don't cook. Yeah. I just don't cook. It's not for me. And you're like, oh,
okay. Yeah. Well, who are you then? So it's like, well, but you're not, most likely whoever you and I have conversations with, they're not coming to us because they're so happy with their life.
Right.
They usually come to us because they need help.
Yeah,
they're not happy with the way things are going. And then to like identify as these people who do this and not that, it's like you have just audibly verbalized the exact constraint that you're setting on yourself to why you're not who you want to be.
But yeah, by putting yourself in the box, there's no room to maneuver now.
Yeah, totally.
And I think, and it goes back to like, even if you are somebody that's not going to cook and you're going to do Uber Eats, then make better choices when you order food. Mm-hmm. That's one example of it being a continuum. Like, heaven forbid, I worked with a guy and he absolutely wasn't going to cook. Just, he worked in finance and had a family, and just between how busy his days were and his personality and just everything at hand, the patterning so deep of every single meal being Uber Eats, that it just was very clear like that pivot wasn't going to happen. But then I would like look at his Uber Eats history, and it's like Jack in the Box.
Yeah, it's like, come on, bro.
And like straight, just like lowest denominator quality fast food.
It's like you have options, It doesn't have to be like, okay, you're either fucking like Chef Boyardee in the kitchen, or you're having to eat a burger and fries. It's like, no, you want the burger and fries.
Yes.
You wanted that.
Right. Whereas like Tender Greens, which is kind of like a farm to table themed simple like meat vegetable plate, comes with a little crostini on the side. I'm like, like ordering from Tender Greens is going to be so much healthier for you.
Totally.
I'm not saying go and cook right now, but let's move the needle a little bit in the right direction so that you're just making better food choices. I get it if this is how it's going to be.
Or don't fucking go on Uber Eats and just go and get like at like Factor or whatever the other like meal delivery services
Something,
that
right,
have
yeah.
your calories, and you can go like, okay, I'm going to go more of a macro focus, like calorie, high protein, whatever. Like there are so many options that are not just simply ordering whatever's most convenient. Like you can take it one step further. I don't know. It's just so common.
It is, yeah. Well, it's always part of the spectrum, because maybe if the person starts making better food choices, then they might switch over to a meal delivery service that has some macros listed. It's those little incremental steps. And I think one of the things that I remember when we were talking about it is that the decision has to be sustainable.
Yep.
Because consistency is the number one most important thing, whether it's a little 10-minute workout or just a simple better food choice or just drinking diet soda instead of regular soda. That the consistency is what matters. And so if you don't make a decision that's within your realm of ability to stick with, then it doesn't matter. It's all for loss anyway.
No, it's like all these, and I think there's like this, people know that their health is not what they want it, right? And they're feeling insecure and depressed and desperate. And so these extreme programs are appealing because people always say, I just need like reset.
Yeah.
And so like the 75 hard, or even like the whole 30, which is essentially just like FODMAP, like low FODMAP.
Yeah. Food elimination.
Incredibly difficult. Like,
Yes.
Nobody can do that for more than just like the 30 days or whatever. But they continue to jump into these things because they keep thinking that they need to like, as if there's just some reset button, like your Wi-Fi router or something. You can just like reset everything. It's like, no, because what did that experience teach you?
And maybe some constraint, maybe some discipline.
Maybe, but most of those people, whatever weight they lose. I mean, statistically, that's just doesn't. If
It's
statistically the obesity rate was going down, then that might hold true. But the fact is that most people do these things, lose 10, 20 pounds, and then gain 30 back.
Yeah, it's like the 5 days of bone broth.
Because it's like they don't want to do just the stuff that is. There's almost like people, they want to believe there's something more to it. No, there has to be more to it. It's got to be this thing that I'm not seeing. Well, it's like, no, the thing you're not seeing is the 3 things that are mundane, monotonous, and boring that you already know.
Right.
You don't need to find anything else out. You just need to do the things you already know. You need to go out there for your walk every day. You need to get a pack of resistance bands, and you need to just go through a 15-minute full body workout a few times a week. You need to just think about what you're going to buy at the grocery store and go there with intention and just set yourself up for success. That's it.
Yeah.
But it's like, no, there needs to be something different that I'm missing. And it's like, you want to believe that, but the reality is that it's the thing you're missing is just the consistency of the basics.
Yeah, 100%. And I think, but it is a thing of that. I think people think fitness, for example, and exercise looks a certain way, right? And so, okay, everybody knows cardio is good for you. We did a whole episode on it if you don't know.
Mm-hmm.
But, I think I saw another fitness like influencer or just a fitness person kind of talk about cardiovascular exercise as like these kind of forks. And it's just like, unless you're training for something specific, like, do you enjoy the activity? And if you don't enjoy the activity, then you should find something that you enjoy. So their example was like, if going into how many people are really going to enjoy going into a gym? You're not necessarily an athlete. You're just somebody who's looking to include some more activity. Go into a gym and sit on a treadmill or sit on a stationary bike inside of a fluorescent gym 3 times a week. It's going to be probably not that fun. Or like sit on a rower. Whereas like if you actually got a bicycle and rode a bike around outside, you probably would enjoy that much more.
Totally.
And that enjoyment most likely will lead to an increase of adherence, or you just continuing to keep it going. And so I think that it's like so often fitness, or the way that the path forward is kind of put into this like narrow lane, when really there are a lot more options. Like, you played volleyball.
Yep.
That was fun, right? The reason you did it. And you're getting so much good activity versus like maybe like going for a run is like a living hell to you and you just don't enjoy it whatsoever. And so the likelihood of you sticking to running and when you just really don't like it is going to be very, very small. And if you do commit to it, it's kind of like pulling teeth. And that's where I think like quality of life in one hand is going up, because you're going to be healthier, you'll have more energy, you'll get all the benefits of doing cardiovascular exercise, but like, is your quality of life going up or down in terms of a lived experience?
And is there like a is like the sand in the hourglass ticking down to where you in the back of your mind know that you're not going to do this for the rest of your life.
You just, yeah, or if you are the kind of person that has a discipline that you're just like making your life miserable just because this is what you're supposed to do.
Right.
Versus if they went and played some volleyball or got a bike and rode around outside or just did something else.
Yep.
And so I think there is a component where there are many intricate ways to move towards just being improved, and that no doubt if you were to just go and hit the treadmill 3 times a week in the gym, that would be great and you'd get the benefits, but that might not be the path forward for you. And I think finding the thing that you'll adhere to that is a step forward or step moving the needle on that spectrum is going to be the most important thing, even if it's not conventionally what a trainer would say you should do. Or it's like no doubt, like counting it's like a good example for me would be like counting your macros is the ultimate way to control your body composition and be in control of your food, keeping your health and aesthetics in check. But cooking your own food, I think, is going to be such a huge step in the right direction.
Totally.
And I think like the difference is that if somebody was like, oh, I'm just going to cook my own food and make good healthy choices, like generally just good home cooked food, not necessarily like mac and cheese and I don't know, within reason, but not count their macros. Like to me, that's going to be such a huge step on the needle that if they never counted their macros, but for the rest of their life, they made single ingredient for the most part, home cooked meals that tasted good. Like I'd be like, you know what? Good to go.
Totally.
And so it's like on paper, counting your macros might be the absolute best mastery way of forward. But if that's just not in your wheelhouse, but cooking your own food is for the rest of your life, then like, you know what? Good on you for at least that much.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think sometimes there is always going to be like a pinnacle, but that finding just some way up the mountain, so to speak.
And understand that there is a trade-off. Like I think that it's unrealistic for you to always want to do things that are inherently hard.
Right.
I think that like you can't just be like, oh well, I just inherently don't like cooking food and moving my body. So just, there needs to be something where you have to realize that like, hey, you don't have to want to do it. You don't have to want to brush your teeth, but you probably should. You don't have to want to pay your taxes, but you probably should.
Probably should, yeah.
Like there is things as an adult that we have to do when we have to do them, whether we feel like it or not.
Yeah.
And we just need to look at health as, okay, fine. What's the minimum effective dose with movement and nutrition that we can start at? You don't have to want to do it, but you also understand because you're a self-respecting adult that you have to do something.
That they're doing nothing has a negative consequence.
Yeah, and so, take me. Like, I am very, very good at doing, for all intents and purposes, a very moderate, intense weightlifting session 4 or 5 days a week. Right here behind the cameras, there's actually a little squat rack, and that's what I can commit to.
Right.
I can't do 20 sets per muscle group per week. Everything will fucking hurt if I do that. Even though sports science says I probably should, especially because I'm a skinnier guy.
Right. To maximize.
I just can't. Because as soon as I do it, my elbows hurt, my wrists hurt, shoulders hurt. I just can't.
Right.
I can get outside and I can walk with my dogs for 30 minutes 2 times a week. I can commit to that.
Yeah.
Would a run be good? Would some other form of cardio be good? Yeah. But you know what? That's what I know I can do. And the thing about it is like nothing matters if you're not consistent.
Yep.
And so you have to lower the barrier of entry. What's the minimum effective dose of exercise and nutrition you can commit to forever? Because there's no going back.
Yeah, we've talked
there's no
about
going
it in the
back.
past. Yeah,
and then instead of looking at it as like, oh well, I should do this, I should do that. It's like, what if you committed to being perfectly average on all things? So maybe you're, instead of being like an A+ on exercise, but then like a fucking F on nutrition,
right.
What if you were just a C+ across the board with hydration, sleep, nutrition, exercise? You had a glass of wine here and there. You maybe you skipped a workout every so often, but you were, for the most part, 70%.
Yep.
7 out of 10 times you were on. I would put money on that person probably living a very long and healthy life.
Without question. Yeah, I mean, I was when we were talking about this kind of pre-show, there's a client that I've had for 13 years now, and we both know him. I think we'd consider him a friend at this point without naming names. But
Not my friend.
well, you know, he's
I'll
friendly.
I'll name this person.
But you know, it's interesting because he loves tennis, so he plays hours of tennis every week. He's just that's his thing. He just is in love with it. He's out there sweating and grinding. You know, he used to train 3 times a week with me. Now he trains once a week with me just because of life. And he's got a kid, and he is familiar with the kitchen. He used to own a catering company. Like, he loves to cook as well. And he likes to have some wine and have a drink here and there. But he will not, like, so many times I've talked to him about his nutrition because he's committing so much to his body, in a sense. He's putting so much work and effort, especially to a sport where he wants to perform. I mean, he's in leagues, he's in tournaments.
Oh, wow.
You know, he does the thing. It's all recreational, but he's all about it. And so often I've talked to him about increasing protein intake or just doing some form of macro because I know it would increase his performance and I know it would help with his body composition. And he's by no means like overweight, but he's got a little chub sack. You know, he's well developed. Like he's got great muscular development, and he's just got a little belly. You know, you wouldn't look at him and be like, oh, that guy's overweight by any means. But for how much he exercises, he's not chiseled by any means either. And you know, I've just kind of stopped barking up the tree because he's just not going to do it. He's just not going to do it. At this point, I've just come to know that he's not going to do his macros. He's not going to make a concerted effort to get this many grams of protein. Even if it would benefit his obsession and interest and hobby of tennis and all of this kind of stuff, he's just not going to do it.
Yeah.
But at the same time, he's out there moving his body. He cooks all of his own food. He loves it. And he makes delicious meals. Like, oh, I made like this baked shrimp dish. Or he's like, oh, I've perfected my chicken breast recipe, you know? And so he's doing enough good things where I'm like, you know what, you're actually going to be okay. You're going to live a long, healthy life.
Right.
You know, you're making your own food. And like for him, I think he knows himself. He's old enough. I think he's in his mid 40s. That to do macros is just it's going to make him miserable. He's just not going to enjoy it. No matter how much of a benefit, that's just who he is. He knows himself. And I think he knows that he's making enough good decisions that he will do those forever, and that he doesn't necessarily need to do macros, even if there's room for benefit, right? Even if there's room for benefit. And if he was eating like shit, like he hates eating like shit, he hates garbagey foods, you know, so he's got his finger on the pulse enough to know that he's making fairly good decisions most of the time. But he doesn't want to give up his wine here and there. He doesn't, and that, I think for him, like that's like kind of that line of quality of his perceived quality of life.
Right. Yeah, and that's the thing. It's like, where is the crossroad between like optimization and quality of life meet?
Right.
Because, you know, we all idolize people who have optimized their life.
Yeah.
But when you actually get to know them, it's kind of like no fun zone. It's
not,
like
it is
in bed by 8 p.m. You know, they don't. So it's like they're fun to like watch.
Right.
But you know, that's not going to be for everybody. And
the sacrifice it takes. I mean, you know, I think people look at like a bodybuilder and they're just like, I mean, most people would say they don't want to be as big of a bodybuilder, but bodybuilders and people that are that jacked are definitely like, oh shit,
it's their whole life.
But it is
everything.
Every
minute is like the time they wake up, the ounces of water they drink, the exact grams of proteins, carbs, and fats, the supplementation, the steroids, the training sessions,
their structure,
tracking
their day,
everything,
waking up whenever they have to spend the 2 hours in the gym every day. Like it is so much sacrifice, and I think that there comes a point like that. You know, it might be for some people. Some people might have a personality where like high levels of discipline and rigidity come easily to them, and maybe they will reap the rewards of moving towards that discipline and the optimization. And some people are also so obsessed with a certain sport, hobby, accolade that they are willing to do whatever it takes to be the best at it. And that's life. That is, people are like that, right?
Totally.
Like to be an Olympic athlete will require a tremendous amount of sacrifice.
Yeah, like there's a reason why Kobe Bryant was Kobe Bryant and Jordan was Jordan, and you know, that quarterback's name, what's his name, who won everything? I forget already. Brady was Brady. Yeah. When you're the 1%, like they are the sport. They're a sports version of the bodybuilder we just described, where everything is dialed in, and measured and tracked and improved on. And so
I think
but you know, I think it's important to like, okay, That's one end of the spectrum.
Yes, that's
That's
exactly,
like that's like the
idealization
complete
of
sterilized,
yep.
like hospital bed. Everything is calculated and measured, and it's no fun.
It's one form of hard, right?
And on the other end, you have to understand that like I think this is actually a law of thermodynamics, is that everything tends toward entropy.
Yeah.
So everything tends towards entropy. Case in point, let's say that you let some dishes accumulate in the sink. So then now when you bring your next plate in and there's already 5 or 6 dishes in there, you're probably just, well, what's one more?
Right. I'll just do them all at once, but later.
And then next thing you know, you have an entire sink full of dirty dishes versus like if you just got in the routine of putting it in the dishwasher every time.
And just washing.
So like, and the same can be true for our life, that like, well, I mean, I'm already eating Jack in the Box, every single day. So what's wrong with eating McDonald's for dinner now?
Yeah.
So everything kind of like tends, when we don't interfere, meaning that like as humans, we don't manage things to an extent, they will all tend towards entropy and destruction. So what we have to do then is we have to understand this tendency and look at our lives as a project and realize that like, well, maybe we're not going to be on the squeaky clean, like sterile side of the spectrum, but the other end of the spectrum is entropy. We know that because it's a law of thermodynamics. And so no one defies physics. And so we have to kind of back into what part of that spectrum we feel comfortable with.
Yeah.
How much entropy do we want to allow into our lives? And then at what point does our life get too sterile where we go, well, this doesn't feel authentic to me? And that's our equilibrium.
Yeah, that's the middle ground.
But that does require a little attention. It does require some self-reflection and some self-awareness and like, okay, here are my tendencies. I can't ignore these anymore. These are my patterns and habits that I have that I need to address.
Yes.
And then you can figure out if that's, I can do a walk every day. I can cook my own recipes. I can limit my dinners out to just once a week.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now we're kind of in this self-management space where we're in a little bit more control, but we're allowing the occasional indulgence in to have a quality of life, but there is a little bit of a trade-off too. And I think that's the idea. That's
100%.
the takeaway.
Because the quality of life on the other end of the spectrum is going to be even lower. Right, like towards the sterilization, optimization end of the spectrum, there might be for most people a point where you're just like, this isn't fun, and I don't like this, and therefore your actual enjoyment of your day to day goes down. But at the same time, it's easy to kind of fall into comfort and perceive comfort as like, oh, it's all good, but it's gonna come and bite you in the ass in one way or another. Having metabolic disease, for example, acquiring diabetes, or not being able to put your own shoes on because you're so overweight, or you try to play catch
is the
with your
consequence
kids
of 30 years of being
doing
very
nothing.
comfortable.
Yes, there has to be I think there's no question that some of the things that require some form of discipline and some form of the effort will have a reward. If you start going on walks, like you're gonna feel better, you're gonna have more energy. There are so many benefits to including some form of exercise in your life for your just overall vitality, I would say, that without any form of discipline, you're going to miss out on a tremendous amount of quality of life. And it's going to take a little grit. It's going to take a little
100%.
uncomfortable decisions, but there is so much to gain from those decisions. And so it can't be that like, oh, well, I just don't like doing this, and so therefore I won't. I think it is. It's where in that middle ground somewhere for you. And I think that every time you kind of click a notch up and choose something and integrate a hard decision, you're that much closer to maybe making another hard decision that would have that much more benefit for you.
Choose your hard, right?
And choose your hard, exactly, right? It's like all the examples. If it's hard to be fat, it's hard to watch what you eat. It's hard to be broke. It's hard to save money. It's hard to have honest, vulnerable conversations with your partner. It's hard to have a shitty relationship. Dumped again. Yeah, exactly. Right. So
yeah, it's delayed gratification.
Yes.
It's practicing a little restraint in the moment in order to achieve a long-term goal and outcome in the future, right? So I think that's the big takeaway, is that find your path.
Yes, stole the words out of my mouth. I was going to say, find your path.
Figure out what's going to work for you. And maybe the CrossFit gym at 6 a.m. just ain't your vibe. It ain't mine.
Yep.
Maybe getting a set of adjustable dumbbells and some bands and a bench at home and kind of letting that little be your project, I love that idea. If
Right.
okay, I'm gonna do 3 20-minute workouts a week.
Yeah, that's great.
Cool.
Yeah, doing just
That's
some
amazing.
online yoga
Yeah.
from the say, from your home
Yeah.
with just
Well,
a mat and just
right.
streaming,
But I
YouTube.
can maybe I'm not gonna track my macros, but I can definitely commit to, making single ingredient recipes at home.
Right. Do you using my hand as general measurements to just make sure my portions are
Every meal has
generally
a
on
has a
point?
veggie and a starch and a lean protein. You don't even have to track your macros. You're
Right.
gonna probably see phenomenal results just from that. So like it's where are you at? You understand that there is a little bit of a trade-off, but you don't want to be squeaky clean, sterile, fully optimized, professional athlete. So where do you fall in that
In
spectrum?
there.
And that's gonna be a process of iterations and discovery.
Yep.
But that is the work.
That is the way.
All right, guys.
Nice.
Well, that was episode 24
All
of
right.
Coach's Corner. That was a fun one, a little bit more theoretical there, but
Yeah.
I love these conversations. And we'll catch you all next time. Peace out.
Peace.